Sergeant Michael Turner had faced nightmares that most people couldn't begin to imagine. He'd walked through cities turned to ash, stared down the barrel of an enemy rifle, and carried wounded brothers on his back through gunfire and smoke. But none of that prepared him for what he was about to face inside his own home. The military had been his life for over 15 years. But during this last deployment, something inside him changed. It wasn't the fear that had always been there. It wasn't even the horror. It was the silence, the kind that settles into a man's bones when he realizes he's not just fighting to stay alive anymore. He's fighting to stay sane. For 18 long months, Michael's only connection to his family was through grainy video calls and carefully worded emails that hid the worst parts of his days. Emma, his wife of 12 years, had done her best to hold things together at home, managing their daughter Ellie's school, balancing bills, pretending not to cry when the connection lagged. And Ellie, their curious, sensitive 7-year-old, had grown 2 inches and lost her front teeth since he'd last seen her in person. Michael had received the call from his commanding officer a week earlier. A shift in logistics. A chance to rotate out early. It wasn't common, but it was real. And he jumped on it. He didn't tell Emma. He wanted the surprise to mean something. To walk through the front door and watch her eyes widen. To see Ellie run to him screaming, "Daddy," like she used to. He wanted normal, just for a few minutes. Just to remind himself it was still possible. The flight home had felt endless, despite being the fastest way back to what he thought was safety. He'd stared out the window the entire time, wondering if Emma had repainted the living room like she said she wanted to. If Ellie's laugh still sounded the same. If their old golden retriever, Max, would even recognize him. And beneath all of that, there was something else. Something darker. A quiet voice in the back of his mind that whispered, "Something isn't right." When the cab finally pulled up in front of his house at dawn, the neighborhood was still asleep. The sky was pale with the promise of a new day, and everything was exactly as he remembered it. The white picket fence, the crack in the sidewalk by the mailbox, the wind chimes Emma hung one summer during her gardening phase. The American flag still fluttered gently from the pole mounted on the front porch. A small, ordinary scene. Too ordinary. Michael stood on the sidewalk for a long minute. His heart thudded in his chest, not from excitement, but from a creeping unease. His duffel bag hung heavy on his shoulder, packed with desert sand and secrets. He ran a hand through his short, graying hair and took the first step toward the door. Every inch of the path was familiar, but it felt distant, like walking through a memory. He reached the door and turned the knob. Slowly, unlocked. He stepped inside. The smell hit him. First lavender and lemon polish. Clean, domestic, safe. Then came the silence. It was still early, maybe 6:20 in the morning, but there was no sign of life. No footsteps from upstairs, no cartoons on the television, no clatter of dishes in the kitchen. The silence was thick, like the air in a tent just before a storm. He set his bag down gently and walked through the hallway. The hardwood floor creaked beneath his boots. His eyes scanned the living room. The couch was in the same place though. The cushions were rearranged. The wedding photo above the fireplace was slightly crooked. The bookshelf had new additions. Ellie's drawings were still taped to the refrigerator, but there were fewer than he remembered. Michael took it all in, with a kind of reverence. This was his home, his sanctuary. But something felt off. He couldn't place it. Maybe it was just the shock of being back. He made his way to the stairs, ready to go up and peek into Ellie's room, maybe lie next to her while she slept. But then he heard it. A sound, faint, muffled. He turned. It came again, from the basement. Voices. He paused. No one ever used the basement this early. It was mostly storage, old Christmas boxes, broken furniture, some power tools. Why would anyone be down there? He stepped closer. The basement door was slightly ajar. He could see a faint light glowing from below. He stood still, listening. "You said he wouldn't be back yet." A man's voice. Deep, confident. Then another voice. "Emma, I know, but it still feels wrong." Michael felt a chill crawl up his spine. He stepped closer, his military instincts taking over. His training kicked in. Read the room, stay silent, gather information. But this wasn't an enemy compound. This was his home. His wife's voice, another man's voice. And something inside him cracked. He leaned in, every muscle in his body tense. "He's a good man," Emma said. "I don't want to hurt him." "You already made your choice," the man replied. "You just haven't accepted it yet." Michael's hands trembled. He reached for the wall to steady himself. The hallway around him blurred for a second. His mind went blank. Was this what PTSD felt like? Was this shock? No, this was betrayal. Pure and bitter. He took a step back, then forward again. Every part of him screamed for clarity. Was he jumping to conclusions? Was he misunderstanding something? He strained to hear more, but the voices went quiet. A chair scraped against the concrete floor. Then footsteps. Coming up. Michael backed away just in time to avoid being seen. He ducked into the kitchen, crouching low behind the island counter, heart pounding in his ears. The basement door creaked open. More footsteps. Then nothing. He waited. Every second stretched into a minute. He peeked around the corner. Emma was alone. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, staring at something behind her back into the basement. Her face was pale. Her lips trembled. She looked afraid. Then she slowly closed the door, turned off the basement light, and walked toward the stairs. She didn't notice Michael crouched in the shadows. He didn't move. Couldn't. His body was frozen between two worlds before and after. The world where he trusted and the world where everything he believed was a lie. He stayed hidden until she disappeared upstairs. Then, slowly he stood. He turned back toward the basement door. He reached for the knob. The cold brass handle felt like ice in his palm. He opened it and began to descend, one step at a time, into the dark. Michael stood frozen in place, heart thudding against his ribs like a war drum. The basement, once a place of simple storage and forgotten exercise equipment, had become something else. Something grotesque, something dangerous. The young man, tied inside the cabinet, had spoken with such raw fear, such confusion, that it shattered every image Michael had carried in his mind about home, about safety, about the people he trusted most. He looked at Emma, his wife, the woman he loved, the mother of his child, and for the first time in his life, he couldn't recognize her. Not entirely. There was something foreign in her eyes. Not evil, not even cruel, just fractured, shattered glass behind a calm face. "I saw him," she said again, voice cracking. "I saw him by the gate, Michael, twice, no, 3 times. Ellie mentioned him once too, said there was a boy on the bus who kept smiling at her. She didn't think anything of it, but I did. I knew that look. I knew that smile. It's the same one." She stopped herself, pressing her lips together, swallowing back the rest. Michael said nothing. He was still processing. The way her hands trembled, the slight twitch in her left eye, the defensive, almost primal way she positioned herself between him and the stairs, as though daring him to go up and get their daughter. She was protecting, that much was clear. But from what? From whom? The boy in the cabinet? Or something else entirely? He stepped closer to her, slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. "Emma," he said softly, "you need to help me understand. Because right now, I'm standing in our basement, with a teenage boy locked in a cabinet. And my wife is telling me it's all for protection. That's not something I can process without answers." She nodded, slowly. Her gaze fell to the cold concrete floor. "I didn't know how to tell." "You," she said, "you were already carrying so much over there. I didn't want to add to it. You've been through hell, Michael. And I have been going through a different kind of hell here. Why didn't you go to the police again? He asked. She snapped her eyes back up. I did. Twice. I gave them his description. Told them where I'd seen him. But they dismissed me. Said I was being overly sensitive or traumatized because of past experiences. And maybe they were right. Maybe I did overreact. But isn't that better than underreacting? I couldn't just wait for something to happen to Ellie. I couldn't. Her voice cracked again on the last word, and she suddenly looked so small. So fragile, like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. Who hadn't had anyone to lean on for months. He realized then that she must have been carrying this fear alone for nearly a year. Michael turned back to the boy, still kneeling, still shaking. He looked about 17, pale, dirty, his wrists red from the tape. His face was streaked with dried tears. He didn't look dangerous. He looked like a victim. What's your name? Michael asked gently. The boy flinched. Tyler, do you know my daughter? No, he said, shaking his head. I live on Maple Drive. I take the bus near the school. That's it. I don't know her. I didn't even know whose house this was until I woke up here. Did you see Emma before? Did you talk to her? Tyler nodded slowly. She came up to me, near the park. Said she'd seen me watching kids. I told her I wasn't, that I was just waiting for my mom to pick me up. I swear, I didn't say anything weird. But she snapped. She pepper sprayed me. I passed out. When I woke up, I was here. Michael's eyes widened. She drugged you? Spray and something in the cloth, I think. My head, it's been spinning for days. Emma raised her voice. He's lying. Michael, he's twisting everything. He looked older that day. I thought he was a man. He had facial hair. He kept loitering around Ellie's school. Emma, you kidnapped him. Michael shouted suddenly, the full weight of it crashing down on him. You kept him in a cabinet. He's a kid. Do you know what could happen to us? Do you realize what you've done to our lives? She said nothing. There was no defense left in her, only pain and silence. Michael turned away, his fists clenched. Every instinct screamed to call the police, to report everything immediately. But another part deeper, more human held him back. What would happen to Ellie, to their marriage? Would CPS take their daughter away if they found out her mother had kidnapped a boy and held him hostage? Would Emma go to jail? Was she even stable enough to survive that? He walked upstairs, fast, without another word. He needed air. He needed time. Outside, the cold air hit him like a slap. The sun had risen fully now, casting long shadows over the lawn. Birds chirped, unaware of the chaos beneath that peaceful house. He walked to the edge of the driveway and stared at the street, trying to calm his shaking hands. He thought of Ellie, her innocence, her bright, curious eyes. What if she found the boy? What if she knew? What had she seen that he hadn't? He stayed outside for almost 15 minutes, and then he made a decision. He went back inside. Down to the basement. Emma was still there, sitting on the floor, head in her hands. He looked at her and said quietly, "We have to let him go." Her head shot up. "What? I'll handle it." But he's not staying another minute in this house. But no. His voice was iron now, final. You trust me? Let me fix this. She nodded slowly. Michael walked over to Tyler, cut the bindings from his arms and legs, and helped him stand. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. Tyler didn't respond. He just stood there, dazed, trembling, unsure whether to run or cry. "I'm going to take you to the bus stop," Michael said. "You'll go home. You won't talk to anyone about this yet. Do you understand?" Tyler looked at him. "What about her?" Michael hesitated. "I'll make sure she gets help." And then he drove the boy to the edge of town. They said nothing. During the ride, when Tyler stepped out of the car, he turned back once. "I didn't do anything," he said. Michael nodded. "I know. And then he drove home. Not as a soldier, not even as a husband, but as a father, and a man standing at the pausnot, edge of something broken, something he might never fully repair. Emma began therapy immediately. Dr. Stewart had agreed to fast-track her sessions after hearing the urgency in Michael's voice over the phone. Emma went twice that week, each time returning quieter, but clearer. Like something inside her was thawing, beginning to form words for things she'd never allowed herself to remember. Sometimes, Michael would hear her cry in the shower. Other times she would emerge and stare at Ellie across the kitchen table with an aching softness, as if she couldn't believe the child was real, or that she had nearly destroyed the world they'd built around her. Michael continued working with the legal counselor that the military base provided. They prepared for the home visit from Child Protective Services, combed through every corner of the house, removed the padlock from the basement cabinet, boxed up every journal and photograph that could be misinterpreted. The anxiety was constant. It coiled in the pit of his stomach like a sleeping snake ready to strike. On the day of the CPS interview, Emma nearly collapsed. "I can't do this," she whispered. "You can," Michael said firmly. "Because you have to, for Ellie." "I'm so scared they'll take her," Michael nodded. "So am I." When the evaluator arrived, a stern woman in her early 50s named Linda Grant, Emma greeted her with the steady voice of someone who had already faced the worst. She answered every question. She didn't hide. She didn't lie. Michael spoke openly about his deployment, about the distance it had caused, about his regret in not recognizing Emma's unraveling. At one point, Linda asked Ellie to draw a picture of her family. She did happily, excitedly drawing 3 stick figures holding hands under a blue sky. "This is me," she said, pointing. "And Mommy and Daddy, that's our house. And that's the scary cloud." Linda looked up. "Scary cloud?" Ellie nodded. "It used to follow Mommy, but it's getting smaller now." Emma's eyes filled with tears. Michael placed a hand on her back. Linda closed her notebook. "Thank you, Ellie," she said gently. 2 more weeks passed. No word. Then came the call. Michael answered on the first ring. "We're not pursuing a removal at this time," Linda said. "We believe Emma is actively seeking treatment and that Ellie is in a stable and loving home. The case will remain open under supervision, but for now your daughter stays with you." Michael sat down slowly. "Thank you." "She's lucky to have both of you," Linda added. "Most don't survive this kind of fracture." Later that night, Emma sat in the backyard alone, barefoot on the grass. Michael joined her quietly. "I don't deserve any of this," she said. "Not after what I did." "You're right," he said. "None of us deserve anything. Not really, but we fight for what matters. And Ellie matters." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Do you think Tyler will be okay?" Michael exhaled. "I don't know, but I think he will. His mother's strong, and he's a lot like you." Emma looked up. "Broken?" "No, brave." 3 months later, Michael found a letter in the mailbox with no return address. Inside was a single piece of paper. "Thank you for letting me go. I'm in therapy now. I don't hate her. I just wanted you to know that. Tyler." Michael folded the letter carefully and placed it in his desk drawer. He didn't show it to Emma right away, not because she didn't deserve it, but because some healing needs to happen quietly between the moments, in the silences, in the cracks where shame and forgiveness collide. The house was different now. Not repaired. Not fully, but growing. Ellie laughed more. Emma began volunteering at a trauma center for women. Michael stayed present, not as a soldier, but as a father, a husband. A man who had nearly lost everything and decided not to run from the wreckage. One night, Ellie asked, "Why do people do bad things even when they're not bad people?" Emma looked at her daughter and said, "Because they forget to ask for help." "Are you a bad person, Mommy?" Emma smiled gently. "No, sweetheart. But I was very, very sad for a long time. And sometimes, sadness makes you forget who you are. Ellie hugged her tight. You're my favorite person. And Emma cried. But this time, she didn't hide it. Michael stood at the window, watching them, his wife and daughter, beneath the soft, yellow light of the living room. They looked like a painting, fragile, honest, and alive. He thought of the cabinet in the basement. The lock was gone now. But sometimes, in his dreams, he saw it anyway, not because he feared what was in it, but because he knew what it had taken to open it. And what they had found inside was not a monster, but a mirror. Michael thought the storm had passed. 3 months since CPS closed their active investigation. 6 months since Tyler's bruised face disappeared into the fog. Therapy sessions had become routine. Emma was better, steadier, grounded, but not whole. Not yet. Maybe never. And that was something they both were learning to live with. Ellie, now 10, seemed to blossom in the wake of tragedy. Her drawings were brighter, her giggles louder. But even a child's joy cannot fully bleach out the stain of the past. Sometimes she asked questions no parent wanted to answer. Why did you change the locks, Daddy? To make sure everything inside stays safe, sweetheart. Michael had answered with a smile, but the truth sat deeper. The locks weren't to keep danger out. They were to keep the ghosts in. Emma's healing had followed a strange rhythm. Some days she glowed with laughter again, like spring daring to break through winter. Other days she'd stare out the window for hours. But Michael had learned to hold space for both. Then the letter came. A simple white envelope, no return address. Postmarked from Nevada. She opened it at the kitchen table while Michael helped Ellie draw animal flashcards in the next room. Her breath hitched. She stood, walked out, locked the bedroom door. Michael didn't notice until Ellie asked where Mommy went. He knocked. Once, twice. Emma? Her voice came after a long pause. He's alive. Michael's heart dropped. Who? She cracked the door, eyes hollow. My uncle. He read the letter. I saw you on the news. Interesting what you did to that boy. I guess you turned out just like me after all. I'm in Reno now. Thought we should catch up. Family's family. Michael wanted to burn it, but Emma stopped him. This is proof. Proof of what? That monsters don't die. That trauma finds new ways to write itself into the present. Michael took the letter to the police the next morning. They said there wasn't much they could do. No direct threat, no crime, just a shadow. But shadows, Michael knew, were where danger always waited. He doubled their home security, installed cameras, put Ellie in private pickup from school. Emma didn't leave the house for a week. Then, a twist Michael didn't expect. A call from Tyler's mother. Rachel, something's happened, she said. Tyler had received a letter to same postmark, same tone, same implication. That Emma was just a reflection of her past. It's not over. I still see her in you. You tried to cage me once, Emma. I wonder how it'll feel when it's your turn to be locked up. Tyler had found it tucked under his school locker door. No postage. Hand delivered. Michael realized 2 things immediately. This wasn't random. Whoever was doing this was nearby. Emma broke down in the living room when she heard. It's my fault, she whispered. He's punishing everyone I touched, even the boy I hurt. Rachel stood in silence for a while. Then, quietly, she said, I don't hate you anymore, Emma. But if you don't stop this, I will. It wasn't a threat, it was a promise. And Emma understood. That night, after Ellie was asleep, Emma confessed everything to Michael, every minute detail of the abuse she'd buried. She told him about the summer her mother left her alone with her uncle, the bribes, the games. The shame. I was 8, she whispered, and I remember praying to die just to stop it. Michael didn't speak. He simply held her. And cried. Emma began to change after that night. Something cold and clear crystallized in her. Not Fear. Determination. They hired a private investigator. It took just 4 days. Emma's uncle, Paul Kendrick, was living under a false identity in Reno. He had no criminal record, but he'd changed names 3 times. He was now working at a nonprofit mentoring troubled youth. Emma vomited when she heard that. They submitted everything to the DA, but no direct threat meant no prosecution. That's when Michael made a decision. He was going to Reno. "Let me go alone," he told Emma. She nodded. "Just don't hurt him. I don't want his blood on your hands too." "I won't touch him," Michael said. But he wasn't sure if that was true. In Reno, Michael watched Paul Kendrick for 3 days. He gathered footage, tracked his habits. Then, one night in a dim bar, Kendrick spotted him. Their eyes met. Michael stood. Kendrick smiled. "Guess the soldier came home after all." "You destroyed her," Michael said. "She was always weak." "She was 8, Kendrick shrugged. "And yet she turned out just like me." Michael leaned in. "You'll leave her alone. You'll disappear. Because if you don't, I'll make sure every parent in the state knows your face." Kendrick smirked. "You don't scare me." Michael smiled back. "I don't need to scare you. I just need to end you legally." He dropped a flash drive on the table. "Your new boss gets that in 24 hours if we hear from you again." Kendrick never wrote again. Michael returned home. Emma was waiting on the porch. He didn't speak. Just nodded. And she understood. The letters stopped for a while. So did the nightmares. They didn't tell Ellie any of it. Some truths don't belong to childhood, but the air in the house felt lighter. Emma smiled more easily. Michael slept more soundly. Ellie drew bright suns with happy faces and no shadows beneath the trees. Weeks passed, then months. And the silence in the walls was no longer tense. It was peaceful. Maybe, just maybe, they had stepped out of the glass. But even peace comes with cracks. 3 months after the last letter, Ellie woke up screaming. Emma and Michael rushed to her room. She was sitting upright, soaked in sweat, pointing at the window. "He was there," she cried. "A man, watching me." Michael ran outside in nothing but his shirt and boxers, flashlight in hand. No footprints. No one in sight. They called the police. A patrol car came, checked the perimeter. Found nothing. "Could be a nightmare," the officer said gently. "Kids imagine things." Emma didn't sleep that night. She sat at the edge of Ellie's bed until dawn. The next day, Michael installed motion-activated floodlights, security alerts on his phone, a lock on Ellie's window. But something in the house had shifted again, a current, a presence. Emma began to see shadows where none existed. Michael caught her talking to herself in the mirror once softly, as though answering someone only she could hear. One afternoon, Ellie asked, "What does like mother, like daughter mean?" Emma's heart stopped. "Where did you hear that?" "I don't know," Ellie said. "I think someone whispered it to me when I was sleeping." Michael and Emma decided it was time to leave, to sell the house, to finally let go of the walls that had held too much pain. They moved into a smaller place across town, closer to Ellie's school, closer to Emma's therapist. No basement. Just light and air. And a backyard where Ellie could run. The house sold quickly. They never looked back, but every once in a while, Michael would drive past the old place and slow the car down. And in the upstairs window, Ellie's old room, he swore he saw someone standing there. Still. Watching. The past never really dies. It just finds a quieter place to haunt. Michael thought the past had finally loosened its grip on them. The new house had no basement, no creaking pipes, no rooms with locked doors. It had windows that welcomed sunlight instead of filtering it through grime. It had a garden Emma tended each morning with hands that no longer trembled. Ellie's room was painted seafoam green, filled with stuffed animals and gentle ceiling lights that changed colors when she clapped her hands. They called it the Rainbow Cave. For a while, they all believed in the peace. Ellie laughed. Again, running through the yard like the 10-year-old she was meant to be, not the child who had once locked herself in closets and cried without sound. Emma started humming while washing dishes. Michael smiled more often, even if the smile still didn't quite reach his eyes. And yet, peace has a way of cracking when you breathe too easily. It started with a scream. It was 2:47 a.m. when Ellie's cry split the night. Michael shot out of bed, feet on cold floor, heart already pounding as if he were still deployed and danger lurked outside the tent. Emma was faster, already halfway down the hall in her robe, bare feet slapping wood. Ellie stood in the doorway of her room, eyes wide, clutching her shirt, pale and shaking. "He was under my bed," she whispered, her voice hollow with terror. "He said I belonged to him, because I'm yours." Emma froze. Michael pushed past her, entered the room, and flipped on every light. He got on his knees and looked under the bed, nothing but dust, a shoe, and a small folded blanket. But when Emma sat beside Ellie, holding her and stroking her hair, she noticed something taped beneath the slats of the wooden bed frame. She pulled it out gently. It was a photograph of Ellie sleeping, taken from the foot of the bed. The police came, took the photo, dusted the window for prints. Nothing. Could be a prank, the officer suggested. Kids at school? But Ellie had no friends in the neighborhood yet. They had just moved in 2 months ago. And Emma knew that tone that condescension adults used when they didn't want to believe what was obvious. Michael installed motion lights the next morning, security cameras, new locks. He even bought a dog-a-mutt from the shelter named Ranger, who growled at shadows and refused to go upstairs. Emma knew better than to ignore signs like that. She began sleeping with the door to Ellie's room open. Michael started waking at every creak. 2 weeks passed without incident until Ellie stopped drawing. Her notebooks were blank. Then she stopped sleeping. Emma caught her once, standing in the hallway, whispering, "Who are you talking to, baby?" She asked gently. Ellie turned, her face blank. "I don't know his name," she said, "but he says I look like Mommy." Emma's blood went cold. That night, she checked the baby monitor camera. At 3:12 a.m., the screen went to static. And when it came back, the chair in the corner of Ellie's room had moved. The video cut again. When it returned, Ellie was sitting up, eyes wide open, staring at the wall. Emma couldn't stop shaking. She remembered all the nights from her own childhood when she had woken to shadows, when her uncle had crept in, when her voice had no power. She remembered thinking, even at 7, that if she could just survive long enough, she would grow into someone safe. Someone no one could hurt. But what if pain didn't end with her? What if it found her daughter now? She started locking Ellie's door at night, not to keep her in, but to keep whatever it was out. But the next morning, the lock was unlatched. Michael confronted her about her spiraling fear, told her they needed to stay grounded, to think rationally. "We left all that behind," he insisted. But Emma knew better. Trauma had a shape, a smell, a rhythm. And that rhythm was back. One night Michael heard breathing. Not Emma's, not Ellie's. Heavy, wet, ragged. It came from under their own bed. He bent down slowly, heart pounding, reached with trembling fingers. Nothing. The next morning, there were scratch marks on the hardwood floor beneath their bed. Emma said nothing when he showed her. She only nodded. "It's found us," she whispered. They called a child psychiatrist for Ellie, Dr. Rina Al-Karim, a warm, silver-haired woman who asked Ellie to draw what she felt. Ellie drew a black shape, not a man, not an animal, a shape, with 100 fingers and no eyes. "It lives under the bed," Ellie said softly. "It likes secrets. It said Mommy was full of them." Dr. Al-Karim called Emma after the session. "I don't think this is just imagination," she said. "Your daughter is describing a trauma narrative she's never lived." Emma broke. Down in the parking lot, she confessed everything. About her uncle, about Tyler, about the letters, about the house. Dr. Al-Karim listened. When Emma finished, the doctor said one sentence: "Trauma repeats what is unspoken." Emma started therapy again that same week. Michael, desperate, began researching spiritual cleansing. He met with a retired priest, a Buddhist monk, even a shaman from the reservation an hour north. Each gave him symbols, incense, candles, and rituals. He tried them all. Nothing worked. Until one night, Ellie screamed not words but a name. Paul. It was Emma's uncle's name. Michael ran in, flipped on the lights. Ellie was sitting on the floor, eyes closed, whispering. He told me to burn it all. The next morning, they found one of her drawings in the trash can, half burned. It was the house. Their house, but upside down. And in the window's black hands reaching out. That afternoon, Michael made the decision. They would leave again, this time for good. But before they could pack, one last thing happened. Emma came home to find Ellie sitting on her bed, eyes red, holding a notebook. Inside were pages and pages of writing and handwriting that wasn't Ellie's. Full sentences, words she couldn't spell. Things like "the dirt under the old house still breathes, and she thought she buried me, but I buried myself deeper." Michael called the old realtor, asked if they could access the previous property. "We need something from the basement," he lied. The new owners were away for the weekend. The agent agreed. They returned to the old house that night. Emma had said she would never step foot in that place again. But now, she had to know. In the basement, where Tyler had once been locked, they found the corner where the floor had always felt colder. Michael brought a pickaxe. They started digging. They found bones. Not human. Animal. Dozens of them, arranged in a spiral pattern. In the center, buried in concrete, they found a locket. Inside was a picture of a young Emma, 8 years old. Emma collapsed. Michael called the police. The remains were taken. The locket cataloged. The house was declared a crime scene again. But Michael didn't care. He had seen enough. They returned home, and the air felt different, lighter. The next morning, Ellie slept in. No whispers. No drawings. No voices under the bed. They burned the notebook. Emma kept the locket. To remind her, not of what hurt her, but that she had survived it. And her daughter would too. They thought it was over. After the basement, after the bones, after the locket sealed in a plastic evidence bag and carried away under artificial light. After the police sealed off the past with yellow tape and stern words that made promises they couldn't keep. After Ellie finally slept through a night without whispers or waking soaked in sweat. After Emma opened the curtains and let the light fall freely again across the kitchen floor, just like it used to. After Michael laughed when Ranger the dog knocked over a stack of papers and licked peanut butter off the counter like he owned the house. It was quiet, uneasy, but quiet. And then, one morning, Ellie placed a drawing on the breakfast table without a word. She went back to her cereal like it meant nothing. But Michael's hand froze halfway to his coffee cup. Emma turned white. The drawing showed a room neither of them recognized. Walls black as tar, no windows, no lights, just a single wooden chair in the center, and a phrase scratched into the floor in blood-red crayon. "You came back." Emma picked it up slowly. "What is this, Ellie?" she asked. Ellie didn't look up. "It's where he waits when we're not listening." Michael's throat closed. "Who?" he asked. Ellie finally met his eyes. "The man who sleeps where no room should be." The silence that followed was so complete, even the hum of the refrigerator seemed to die. Emma folded the picture and didn't speak for the rest of the morning. That night, she dreamed of a door that hadn't been there before. Wooden, old, scarred, sitting in the middle of their hallway wall where nothing had ever been. She dreamed she opened it. Inside, a chair, a voice, a scent she hadn't smelled in decades. Old spice, sweat, and whiskey. The scent of her uncle. She woke screaming. Michael tried logic. He measured every room in the house, checked the blueprints, counted vents, beams, even used a thermal sensor app from his phone to detect cold spots. Nothing. Every wall led to what it was supposed to lead to. And yet, late one evening, after everyone was asleep, he swore he heard a soft knock. Not at the door, not at the window, but from inside the wall. He pressed his ear to it. Nothing. He told himself it was the house settling. Houses creak. Houses moan. Especially older ones. Especially ones filled with memory. But the next morning, Ellie came to breakfast with a cut on her hand. Thin, straight, like a paper cut. But when Emma asked how it happened, she whispered, "The door didn't want me to leave." Emma called Dr. Al-Karim. The child psychiatrist agreed to a house visit. She sat with Ellie in her room while Emma and Michael listened from the hallway, pretending not to listen. The session lasted almost an hour. When it ended, Dr. Al-Karim looked disturbed. "She's describing a room with such detail," she said quietly. "It's as if it imprinted itself on her, like a trauma memory. But it's not hers, it's transferred. From me?" Emma asked, her voice brittle. "Or from something else?" The doctor didn't answer. She only said, "There's a reason trauma echoes across generations. The body remembers what the mind cannot hold." That night, Emma found Ellie standing in the hallway, in front of a blank wall, her hand raised but not touching. Just hovering. When Emma asked what she was doing, Ellie replied, "He said if I knock 3 times, the room will come back. But I don't want to, not yet." Emma pulled her away, heart thundering. Michael grew obsessed. He called contractors, paranormal experts, a man with dowsing rods, a woman with incense and bells. They all gave him different answers. One said there was a pocket in the energy grid. Another said the family had awakened something old. One simply stared at the wall and cried. That night, the knocking returned. Louder, rhythmic, 3 knocks. Then silence. 3 knocks, then silence, until dawn. Ranger barked until he collapsed in exhaustion. Ellie slept through it all. Emma began to wither. Her skin paled, her eyes sunk. She said she felt someone breathing in her ear when she brushed her teeth. She stopped using mirrors. "I keep seeing him behind me," she whispered. "But when I turn, he's gone." Michael begged her to leave the house for a few days to take Ellie to her mother's. "And leave you here alone?" she said. "This started with me, Michael. If I go, it'll just sink its teeth in deeper." So they stayed together. Then Ellie disappeared. Only for 7 minutes. But it was enough. They were in the kitchen. Ellie went to her room to get her favorite book. Michael counted. Exactly 7 minutes. When Emma went to check, the room was empty. Not just empty, wrong. The walls looked darker. The light bulb flickered. The floor felt soft. And then Ellie stepped out of the closet, eyes blank. She handed Emma the book. "He let me go," she said. "But only because I promised I'd bring him something better next time," Emma screamed. Michael grabbed Ellie, shook her gently. "What do you mean better?" Ellie began to cry. "He wants mommy. He said you remember too much." They called the police. A social worker came. Dr. Al-Karim returned. But no one had answers. No bruises, no proof. Just fear that filled the walls. And then, one day, Ellie stopped talking. She sat by the blank wall every morning, drawing in silence. Every drawing was the same. The chair, the phrase. And now something new. Emma, sitting in the chair, head bowed. Michael broke. He packed bags, booked a hotel. But when he tried to open the front door, it wouldn't budge. Not locked, not jammed, just ... Stuck, as if the house itself refused. Emma stood by the hallway wall and said, "It's time." Michael screamed at her to stop. She knocked once, twice, 3 times. The wall cracked, split, open, behind it a room. Black walls. One chair. Emma turned. If I go in, maybe it'll let her go. Michael grabbed her. You don't have to do this. Tears in her eyes, she said, yes, I do. She stepped inside. The door slammed shut. Michael beat on the wall until his fists bled. He heard nothing. Until Ellie, standing beside him, whispered, she's talking to him now. Michael turned, horrified. To who? To the part of her that never left that room. The wall healed. As if the door had never been there, but Ellie spoke again. She says she remembers now. Sayap Langet? For 3 days, the wall stayed solid. No cracks, no door, no voice. Michael barely slept. Ellie sat by the hallway floor, head resting on her knees, her drawings untouched for the first time in months. The house was still, but not peaceful. It was waiting. Every time Michael walked past that part of the hall, he felt something pressed against the other side, something listening, something breathing. He talked to the wall like a man talks to a grave. He whispered apologies. He pleaded. He made promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Just bring her back, he said again and again. Just bring her back. On the morning of the 4th day, the wall cracked. Michael ran. It wasn't a door that opened, but a fold in the world. A ripple, like the hallway itself, sighed and peeled open. There, in the space that shouldn't exist, Emma stood. Her skin was pale, her hair loose and tangled, and her eyes were swollen from crying. But she was alive. Michael didn't ask what she saw. She didn't offer. All she said was, "It's done." And somehow they both knew it was true. That night, they all slept in the same bed. No screams, no knocks, no whispers, just breath and silence. The good kind. They moved 2 months later, not out of fear, but because the house no longer belonged to them. It had given Emma back. And in doing so, had taken something else with it, something dark, something old, something that had lived too long in their lineage. It was as if the house had been waiting all this time to trade one truth for another. It had fed on Emma's silence, on her shame. And once she walked into that room and faced it fully, not as a child, not as a victim, but as a mother, it lost its power. The drawing stopped. The dog began to bark again at squirrels, not shadows. Ellie started humming when she brushed her teeth. Michael found himself watching the sky more than the walls. Emma planted lavender in the new backyard, and one evening, while pulling weeds, she found something small and strange, an old rusted key buried in the dirt. She picked it up, studied it, then smiled. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She simply whispered, "Not this time," and buried it again. They never told Ellie everything. Some truths have sharp edges, and children deserve soft ones. But Ellie remembered in her own way. She once said, "The house was sick. And it made us sick too. But now it's sleeping." Emma didn't correct her, because maybe she was right. Some houses don't need exorcisms. They need memory. They need someone to scream back when they whisper. They need someone brave enough to knock first. Michael never went back to the house, but he drove past once, just once, and in the upper window, he saw nothing. No face, no shape, just glass, clear and cold and empty. And in that emptiness, he finally exhaled. Trauma doesn't disappear. It transforms. Sometimes into silence, sometimes into legacy, sometimes into a girl who refuses to be afraid of the dark anymore. The house is still there, but it no longer belongs to the past. And the man who returned early from deployment, the man who once found horror in a locked basement, now knows that sometimes coming home is only the beginning, because what we inherit is not just blood, but silence. And what we pass down is not just love, but also the courage to break it.